This is TransportBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
Hey guys, it's your host Derryn Wong for TransportBT, a podcast of BT correspondents. Now, today's episode sounds a little bit different because we're here on the show floor at Suntec City at the Singapore Motorshow 2025. Now, I've been covering this show for a decade or more now, and while it looks the same on the surface, there is now a distinct shade of red, and I'm not talking about the carpet. The Chinese EV brands have now entered every sector of the car market in Singapore, aside from ultra-luxury. What does this mean, and how does this change the dynamics of the market? We'll get into that today with some of the brands at the show, but enough talking, let's go check out some cars. By my count, there are 9 Chinese, primarily EV-focused brands and sub-brands that are making their show debuts. So it's the first time we're seeing Deepal, Zeekr, Nata, Derryn Wong, and IM Motors officially in Singapore. And it's also the first time Denza, Smart, XPeng, and Zeekr are at the motor show itself. And we have 7 of those 9 newcomers cramming themselves into one segment. So that's the premium tech segment. Now, when we talk about EVs and the premium technology EV segment, Premium Motors is at the center of that. Not just because of their name, but because they've got not 1, but 3 brands that are in the segment or higher. So you got Deepal right here, you got XPeng, which is also premium, and you got Zeekr, which is luxury. And today I have with me Lee Ho Lung, who's the managing director of Premium Motors. So why did you guys do 3 and not just 1, Chinese premium EV brand? Not enough. One's not enough.
It's more of what's the opportunity and what is the market's requirements. So we see the market is transforming from ICE to EV.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable. So we are looking for strong brands that we can partner with to bring to Singapore.
Right. And you said it's what the market wants. So you guys think that now the market is receptive to Chinese brands, or is there something here that, like incentives
I would
that
say
help?
it's Chinese brands. We are looking at EV brands because the auto trade is moving from ICE to EV. Just like your old Nokia phones moved away to smartphones.
Yeah.
It is something that you can't stop.
Yeah.
You can't stop progress.
Right. So it's not just your big incentives, right? Because definitely you guys capitalize on that, right?
I think that helps with the transition.
Yeah.
Imagine if the smartphone that time had incentive, the whole switch would have been much faster.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah. And also the brands that you guys bring, they have a lot of technology for the price, even without incentives, right?
I think all China brands, EV brands have a lot of technology. So what distinguishes with these 3 brands that we have is the top 10 selling brands in 2024 in China for EV brands. 5 of them are in Singapore. 3 of them are with us.
Wow.
Deepal, Zeekr, and XPeng.
In the top 10 in China.
Yeah, they're on the top 10 EV brands in China.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you got 3 brands going, so do you have any concerns about cannibalization, or is the market big enough to support, all these brands?
If we just look at the ICE 5 years back, number of ICE brands in Singapore, for such a small market, there shouldn't be so many ICE brands in Singapore too, right?
Good point, yeah.
Right? You had Opel, you have Alpha, you have very small brands that didn't sell many, but it's still, if it still makes commercial sense to the distributor, you'll still have it, and there will be some customers who want it because of the design or because of they just had a particular color they like.
And what distinguishes these 3 brands?
So they do, to the layman, they seems to be the same, but once you test drive the cars, you experience the brand, it will appeal to different people, and you will have a compelling reason why you choose that particular brand. XPeng is very well known for that technology. When you sit in the car, it feels as if you are in the next generation product where the car sees so much things.
Right.
Zeekr is very much focused on innovation, at the same time luxury. The leather they use, the stitching, the kind of little gold plating they put on all the knobs, you are buying a premium product. Then you come to Deepal, they're not just talking about technology, they talk about form factors. Like, for example, they have E07 coming. There's a nice coupe-ish SUV, but it transforms into a pickup. So if someone who wants to throw their dirty mountain bikes to the rear, they can, or they have big dogs that they want to put in there, they can. So each brand has a different set of appeal. So we won't just like trying to grab whichever premium EVs that we can to bring in. We see that each appeals to a different segment of customers.
And the brands here that are coming into Singapore kind of similar, right? I mean, like they all have a different target, and you think these will all be competitive with each other.
I think there will definitely be competition, especially even you look at Thailand. The China price war has gone into Thailand. But it's up to the distributor's job to position the brand differently and appeal to the right target audience. Once you successfully do that, then you move slightly away from just talking about price alone.
So that is the attraction of Chinese premium tech EVs now. But the Chinese are not sitting still either. They've already entered the luxury segment, for example, with Zeekr, that debuted in Singapore last year. It competes with Audi and BMW. And, the big 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, BYD, also has a luxury sub-brand, Yang Wang.
Good morning, dear friends from the media and our guests of BYD. Welcome to the BYD booth right here at the Singapore Motorshow 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get your phones and your cameras ready for the very first time right here in Singapore, the Yang Wang U9.
BYD is now the #1 EV brand in the world and in Singapore as well. But they're not just content with taking the mainstream segment that they came up in. They're also doing premium brands in the form of Denza, and they're also doing a luxury brand in the form of Yang Wang, with the supercar you see right here. So James, are they going to bring Yang Wang to the rest of the world?
We're still in the planning stage, so hopefully you'll come to Singapore soon.
Right. So you definitely have the interest to go into the luxury segment as well.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes. That's why we have our luxury Denza D9 in Singapore. That was in last year, 10th of October, that we launched the vehicle.
So it's very much a strategic move, right? You have mainstream BYD, you have premium Denza, and now you will have luxury in the form of Yang Wang, right?
Yes, correct. Because we see that in Singapore, there's a need. There's actually a niche market for the luxury versions of BYDs. Yeah.
And obviously we realize BYD is not like other Chinese brands. You guys are the market leader, and everyone kind of looks to you now to lead the way. And a lot of other brands have come into Singapore to emulate your success. What do you think about that?
Okay, in fact, actually, we like to see these type of situations because basically it has proven that in Singapore, it is an environment that's suitable for EVs, BEVs.
And how has BYD actually, achieved this success in the mainstream segment? How do you do it?
Actually, BYD is not new. Actually, we are the first mover for EVs, more than 10 over years. First of all, it has proven the reliability of BYD products, especially in its batteries and the components. Second thing is that it is a company that produces majority of its line item by itself. So because
vertical
of that,
integration, right?
Correct. It's a full integration that proved to be eventually the outputs of the product is definitely the optimal one. So at the same time, since we are doing a lot of things within BYD itself, we are able to derive a very good pricing. We always say that BYD products in Chinese is a very 高性价比 product. So basically, it's a high perceived quality price ratio product that people like to own BYD.
And Denza is doing quite well already in Singapore, right? A premium brand. How are the sales like?
The sales is very good. In fact, we are able to capture the MPV markets. So we're very confident that moving forward, we're able to give more different models of vehicles for Denza.
Right. So the model update will continue for Denza. But next time for Yang Wang, what do you think is the biggest challenge? Like really luxury. Do you think people get behind that Chinese luxury?
Yeah, I think for BYD, the recognition of BYD brand is already there.
Yep.
Now the thing is how BYD can do it even better to make sure that we customize according to what's worldwide want. And I believe that you will be experiencing luxury products like Yang Wang very soon.
No, it was really fun to check out the bells and whistles and the literal dancing cars that were put out of the hat at the motor show. But what is the realistic outlook for the Singapore market in 2025, taking all this into account? And how will these Chinese players continue to change the game? That's coming after the break.
Money Hacks by the Business Times delivers useful financial tips every Monday. Subscribe to the playlists in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But if watching is your thing, we've got you covered. Subscribe to the Money Hacks playlist in the podcast tab of BT's YouTube channel and watch as Howie Lim gets the inside scoop on the best money hacks. Subscribe and watch today.
And now, back to TransportBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
Okay, now that we're done with the tour of the show floor, I'm glad that's done. We're back in the studio, so let's figure out what all these changes mean for Singapore's car market. And to do that, I've got with me Victor Kwan, Senior Lecturer at Singapore University of Social Sciences, to help us. Hey Vic, how are you doing?
Hi, good. Happy to be here.
Cool. Why don't you tell the audience a bit about your background?
As introduced by you, I'm a senior lecturer at the Singapore University of Social Sciences. Before that, I actually spent about 25 years almost in the automotive industry as the managing director of various brands.
Yeah, everything from mainstream to luxury and ultra luxury, right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
You went from Kia to Bugatti. That's pretty crazy, actually.
That's two extremes. Yeah.
So, a bit of background, like 15 years ago when the car industry in Singapore, we first saw Chinese cars come in, and then the quality of the cars back then was basically atrocious. They were some of the worst cars I ever driven. And now I look at what's at the motor show. That's such a crazy change, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, for many, many years, there's a very established order of things, right? In the mass market, you have the Japanese, and then the Koreans came very strongly, right? Obviously, then you have the entry Continental, where you have Volkswagen and a few French brands, right? And when it comes to premium, basically, they are dominated by the Germans and to some extent British. And in the luxury segment, they are mostly British and Italian. So that was the order of things for the longest time,
Yeah.
But there seems to be, the last couple of years, there seems to be a new world order now.
Yeah, you're right.
Where the Chinese are actually coming in very, very strong.
Yeah, crazy. So we were there yesterday.
Yeah.
9 new brands, all Chinese coming into Singapore. And what explains their presence? And
I think a lot of these Chinese brands has been doing well domestically.
Yeah.
And they are probably ready for export now, number one. The other thing is, it's no secret that the Chinese economy is going through a bit of growing pains, right? So domestic demand probably has dropped. So a lot of these manufacturers, they are ready with their right-hand drive. They are ready to explore the export market. Now, if you look at the way things are going globally, not every market is friendly to them, right? Especially in the Western countries where they...
US, Canada,
Europe.
I think Turkey as well.
Yeah, they are snapping pretty huge tariffs.
100% tariff.
On these Chinese-made vehicles, right? Southeast Asia is considered a very friendly territory.
It is.
They just come in. So as such, it is not surprising that they will focus on Asia, Southeast Asia as a key export market.
China has had this EV revolution plan for the past 15 years as well.
Yep.
And so much so that, they really pumped all the money, billions and billions of dollars into it. Now, the Chinese economy, as you said, slowed down a little bit. And now they got all this excess capacity that has to go somewhere as well, right?
Yes, that's the case. And that possibility of dumping is what, causes the predominantly Western countries to put a tariff, on Chinese EVs.
Yeah, which is understandable, I guess. They want to protect their domestic car industries.
Domestic car industry, yeah, that's right.
But at the same time, what we saw yesterday is really that also the Chinese pack so much technology into the cars, and they're all EVs as well. Most of them are EVs. And they're all fighting in this so-called premium technology segment where Tesla was the leader.
Yep.
So how's that going to work for Singapore?
Yeah, we were at the motor show, right?
Yeah.
So many new Chinese brands. They all look good. They are all packed full with features, that you will never be able to get at that price range. The biggest challenge I feel is that the Chinese brands have to spend the next $1 billion building up brand equity. If you remember, some years ago, there was a beauty pageant from a certain country where all the participants, they look beautiful, but they all look the same.
I think, I knew you were going for that.
So it is kind of similar with where the Chinese brands are now. They were all beautiful, but there are no distinctive design DNA in each of them.
Yes.
So after a while, a lot of them looks similar. And I think this is where they need to spend the next $1 billion to build up brand equity and to also build up their own design languages.
And that's tough. But you can't build history and heritage. So,
you need time.
So how do you make up for that?
You need time for history and heritage. you need smart marketing as well. But design is something you can do relatively quickly. Now, one challenge I realized about EVs, right? How a lot of those legacy brands built their design language that are so recognizable over the last 50 years, right? Is each of them has a very unique front grille.
Now you don't need a grill anymore, right?
Now, with EV, you don't need a grill anymore.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not a designer. Okay, I'm sure a professional designer will be able to find ways to, among all the sameness, there are a couple of Chinese brands that actually has some unique design language, right? You look at Aeon, for example, there's a streak of lights in the front lamp. That's distinctive. There are some of these brands that manage to carve out a design DNA of their own. And I think this is what a lot of the other Chinese brands will need to go after.
Obviously, not all of them are going to survive. But yesterday, we also saw two really interesting things. One was Zeekr, which, has come out and said, we're basically trying to compete with the Germans, Audi, BMW. And we also had, BYD's supercar, the Yangwang. That really took a lot of eyeballs, right? And what do you think of that? Can Chinese brands really go into luxury? Like really, fight against Porsche? Wow.
That's the next big leap, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's a big leap. Right?
Denza is attempting it now. They teased us a little bit with the Yangwang yesterday. But in the luxury segment, a brand personality, a brand equity is critical.
Right.
It's a decades-old running joke that, if you see any of the car brands, there are certain personality who will drive this brand, right? You will see memes about it, see jokes about it. A certain kind of people will drive Mercedes, a certain kind of people will drive an Audi. These are the kind of brand personality that these legacy car makers have built over decades.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And while we make a joke out of it, but it is also what distinguishes one brand from another. It
reflects reality. That's why it's funny.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
So if I mention, for example, BMW to you, certain kind of drivers will come to your mind. I mention Audi to you, some will come to your mind, or Toyota for that matter, right? But if I mention Neta to you, does a certain personality come to your mind?
Nothing comes
Not
to mind.
yet. Or Xpeng, for example, not yet. So this is where they will need to build a brand personality. But this needs time and a lot of clever marketing.
Yeah, and actually, I think some of the Chinese brands really, you can see that they're very used to dealing with the domestic market. Like the marketing looks like it came from Taobao. and they haven't quite gotten that sophistication yet, so they have to learn.
Yeah, but Chinese being Chinese, that one day they will get there.
So what's your prediction? I mean, how long will they take to get a real strong foothold in the luxury sector?
Well, they gain a lot of ground in the mass market segment within 2 to 3 years. Given another 4 or 5 years, I think they may start to make some grounds into the premium segment. Luxury is still some way off.
Right.
I feel, yeah. But never write the Chinese off. It's a new world order.
Yeah. If anything, we can see that the pace of development, the Japanese took 20 years, the Koreans took 15 years, the Chinese took 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Thanks, Vic. Thanks so much for the very great insights on the car market and the effects of new Chinese players. All right, that's it for Transport BT this episode. Next week, BT correspondent will be back with another episode. So please become a pod person yet again and check it out. Now, as a transport podcast, we aim to cover anything that drives, flies, swims, or maybe even goes through space. If you have any thoughts or questions about the show, email us at btpodcasts, btpodcasts @sph.com.sg. I'm your host, correspondent Derryn Wong. Thank you for listening.
This is a podcast by the Business Times. Find more BT podcasts at businesstimes.com.sg/podcasts. Or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.